what President Trump could do, which would be a much more reasonable and rational approach to the Russians, who don't want to be our enemies, who would very much like to do business with us, is to simply say that he will host a discussion or a peace conference or a negotiation between the various parties, primarily President Putin and the East European states. In other words, the people that border Russia: Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Finland, Romania, Slovakia, Hungary, all of them, Poland. Come sit and talk directly to the Russians, sort this animal out. However, the precondition for the talks is that the United States accepts neutrality for Ukraine, not a term of neutrality that allows for something else in 10 years or 20 years. That's absolutely unacceptable. There will be no peace in Eastern Europe, let alone Ukraine, unless Ukraine, what remains of it, is neutral. If he did that, I think this could come to some sort of closure relatively quickly. But I haven't heard him say those things. We get rumors, so we have to wait for what President Trump actually says. But back again to this notion that we're the great superpower and we can weigh in and force or push the Russians to do anything is nonsense.
Douglas Macgregor offers a straightforward but impactful perspective on how the United States could shift its approach toward Russia under Donald Trump's leadership. Central to his argument is the idea of recognizing and addressing Russia's legitimate security concerns, which have been largely dismissed or ignored by Western policymakers. Macgregor suggests that Trump has an opportunity to take a more pragmatic and diplomatic approach, one that prioritizes peace and stability over the aggressive posture that has characterized U.S. foreign policy in recent decades. Macgregor envisions a scenario where Trump takes the initiative to host a comprehensive peace conference or negotiation. This conference wouldn't be limited to the U.S. and Russia, but would include key Eastern European states that share borders and histories with Russia. These countries, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Finland, Romania, Slovakia, Hungary, and Poland, are integral to any discussion about Eastern European security. Their voices, Macgregor argues, must be part of the conversation to create a sustainable resolution. Such direct talks could help diffuse tensions, address lingering grievances, and establish clear boundaries and agreements. However, Macgregor emphasizes a critical precondition for these negotiations: the acceptance of a truly neutral Ukraine. Neutrality must be absolute, and not a facade that leaves the door open for future manipulation or militarization. The West's previous attempts to incorporate Ukraine into NATO or use it as a proxy against Russia have only escalated tensions and brought the region closer to disaster. Macgregor insists that without this neutrality, peace in Eastern Europe, and by extension, Ukraine, is unattainable. For Russia, Ukraine's neutrality isn't just a preference, it's a security imperative. This neutrality, Macgregor argues, must be permanent and guaranteed. Past agreements, such as the Minsk Accords, failed in part because they were seen as temporary solutions or bargaining chips. For any peace process to succeed, all parties, including the U.S., must commit to Ukraine's non-alignment in a way that builds trust and ensures long-term stability. Macgregor contrasts this potential diplomatic approach with the prevailing mindset in Washington. The notion that the U.S. can pressure or coerce Russia into submission, he argues, is unrealistic and rooted in outdated Cold War thinking. Russia is a major power with its own interests and capabilities. The belief that it can be pushed into compliance ignores the realities of power dynamics and Russian resolve. By hosting a peace conference and prioritizing diplomacy, Trump could offer a new vision for U.S. foreign policy. This approach would not only benefit the U.S. and Russia, but also the broader international community, which has been destabilized by the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. It's an opportunity to move away from endless wars and toward a more balanced and cooperative global order. Macgregor also touches on the broader implications of this approach for U.S.-Russia relations. Contrary to the narrative that Russia is inherently antagonistic, he highlights that Moscow has expressed a willingness to engage constructively with the U.S. The problem, he suggests, lies in Washington's refusal to recognize this willingness and its insistence on treating Russia as an adversary. This adversarial stance has led to unnecessary confrontations and missed opportunities for collaboration. Trump's potential role in this scenario is crucial. As someone known for his unorthodox approach to diplomacy, Trump could break away from the entrenched policies that have perpetuated conflict. His ability to think outside the box and challenge the status quo could pave the way for a new era of U.S.-Russia relations. However, Macgregor acknowledges that Trump has yet to articulate this vision clearly. While there are rumors about his intentions, concrete proposals have not yet emerged. This lack of clarity underscores the importance of leadership and communication. For Trump to succeed in this endeavor, he must present a coherent and compelling vision for peace. This includes not only outlining the goals of a peace conference, but also addressing the concerns and interests of all parties involved. It's a delicate balancing act that requires skill, patience, and a genuine commitment to diplomacy. Macgregor's critique extends to the broader assumptions underlying U.S. foreign policy. The idea that the U.S. is a great superpower capable of dictating terms to other nations is, in his view, outdated and counterproductive. The world has changed, and the unipolar moment, if it ever truly existed, is over. Recognizing this reality is essential for crafting a foreign policy that is both effective and sustainable. In addition to the strategic benefits, Macgregor highlights the moral imperative of pursuing peace. The ongoing conflict in Ukraine has caused immense suffering and destruction. A negotiated settlement that respects the interests of all parties could prevent further loss of life and pave the way for reconstruction and reconciliation. It's not just about geopolitics, it's about humanity. Ultimately, Macgregor's analysis is a call for a more rational and realistic approach to U.S.-Russia relations. By prioritizing diplomacy over confrontation, acknowledging the limits of military power, and committing to the principle of neutrality, the U.S. can help create a more stable and peaceful international system. It's a vision that requires courage, creativity, and a willingness to challenge deeply held assumptions. Whether Trump is willing and able to rise to this challenge remains to be seen. According to Douglas Macgregor, what President Trump could do, which would be a far more reasonable and rational approach, is to engage with the Russians, who don't want to be our enemies and would prefer to do business with us. He could simply announce that he will host a peace conference or negotiations involving the key parties, primarily President Putin and the Eastern European states, such as Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Finland, Romania, Slovakia, Hungary, and Poland. The idea would be to bring them together to directly address their issues with Russia and sort this situation out. However, the precondition for such talks must be that the United States accepts neutrality for Ukraine. This cannot be a superficial or temporary neutrality that leaves the door open for future conflicts in 10 or 20 years. That would be entirely unacceptable. There will be no lasting peace in Eastern Europe, let alone Ukraine, unless what remains of Ukraine is truly neutral. If Trump were to take this approach, there's a good chance the conflict could be resolved relatively quickly. Unfortunately, I haven't heard him propose such a plan yet. All we have are rumors. For now, we'll have to wait and see what President Trump actually says. But this idea that the U.S., as a superpower, can simply force or push the Russians into submission is complete nonsense. Thanks for watching.